Okay, we're gonna go ahead and do a complete disassembly of this firearm. Disassembly and reassembly if the video doesn't get too long. So let's get going with a basic field strip. This was in a previous video, so if you need it slowed down, you can always go back and refer to that video. But for this purposes, I'm going to speed through this first part, which is that simple. So then you're going to need to get a flathead screwdriver, and always use screwdrivers that are designed for your weapons. I say that although I don't practice what I preach. If you're not going to, make sure you use a lot of caution. There is a little screw right here that holds in this plunging rod, and it holds on a small leaf spring. So back that screw out. It's a very small screw. Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing here. It's a very small screw, so you don't want to lose the parts here. But small screw there. This little leaf spring pops off, and it's got a little notch that sticks down right there. That allows you, that's what retains this plunging rod. You can see that groove. Maybe you can't. There is a groove in there. That's why you have to rotate this pin around, and allows it to slide freely. So that's that part. Then the loading gate arm, there is another screw right here that holds a leaf spring that gives tension to that loading gate. So if you break that free, and I'm just using the screwdriver to break those free. They're not, I mean, just be careful whenever you're doing these. A lot of these guns are 70, 80 years old. You don't want to hurt anything. Then just lift that leaf spring out, and that's what holds tension. And just remember how everything goes in there. Definitely pay attention to which way stuff faces. And now, as you can see, there's no more tension on that. Using your screwdriver, there is one more screw just holding that arm in. Go ahead and back that screw out. Just be careful, go slow. You don't want to scratch your frame trying to go too fast. This video may be ridiculously long. I'm just trying to back that screw out, and I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the weapon. Okay, that screws out. Loading gate arm just pops right off. Set that over there. Alright, now there's only really one more screw you have to take off, and that's this main screw holding on. This whole side of the revolver is one big plate. So I'm going to get a bigger bit, one size larger. And I'm going to take that one off. Break it free. That one's pretty loose. Okay. Back that out. Got it. Oh, an easy way is put that back in. Don't necessarily thread it, and then give that a little tap, and that will actually break free the side plate. As you can see, it broke that free. And then just lift that off. And what's neat about these grips is this is actually a 3-piece grip. There is a wood piece on this side, there is a wood piece in the center, and then there's a third wooden piece on this side. And another neat thing that this revolver has is, if you see right, let me get my Glock 10 out here. This screw right here is what holds on these grips. These grips on the revolver are screwed in from the inside, so that during combat and heavy use, you don't have to worry about the screws backing out and your grips falling off. So there's the other big plate, and then what you have here are the internals. I'm going to try and zoom in here a little bit to give you guys a better view. So you have a dual leaf spring system right here. You have your hammer trigger. I believe it's called the trigger fall. And then I have to take a couple more pieces off to get the other two behind there. Now, to get the trigger guard off, loosen this screw. You don't have to take it all the way out, but you need to get it above the flat plate that the trigger guard sits in. So maybe 2 or 3 full turns, and as you can see, maybe the right here, the screw is now above the frame. So all you have to do at this point is pull the trigger guard down. Just pull it down like that. You see how it's an open, it just sits around that screw. So you pull that down and then just lift it off its stud. So that's your whole trigger guard. So the next piece is your dual leaf spring, and you want to be very careful not to use pliers or anything. It's not that hard of a spring. You just want to grab it, compress it a little bit, and lift up, and that's the leaf spring. And it's this long piece actually slips in underneath the trigger. This bar here actually slips in right here underneath the hammer, and it's secured onto the grip right there with that hole and with that pin right there. Okay, so once you've got that off, just pull back your hammer, lift the hammer off, and then you can, with your trigger all the way down, you can simply lift your trigger off, and there is a piece here, I believe this is what's called the trigger fall, and it just sits in there in a pin. You don't have to remove that. Just set your trigger there, and then I cannot remember what this piece is called, but that piece just slides, it rides up and down in there, and it just comes right out of the groove. And then the abutment piece, which is what actually helps force the cylinder forward, and the hammer falls through it. It helps secure the base of your cartridge when the cylinder's pressed forward, and the hammer falls through it. So to get that out, all you have to do is lean the gun back, it falls back, and it sits on a post. So as you can see, the hammer actually falls through there. This is actually pressed against the base of the cartridge when the weapon is cocked, and the hammer falls through there, discharging the round. And that's it. The only other thing you could do would be to take the screws out and remove the grips. I have seen some of these weapons with a lot lighter wood grips. I'm not sure if this was heavily oiled or cosmolined. I didn't have any cosmoline on mine that I can really tell. It's just it was heavily oiled and in a plastic bag. Used some ballistol and got it cleaned up, but the grips are still just dark as can be. But even on the backside, it's a very dark wood. So I'm gonna leave the grip. I don't plan on taking the grips off. The only other piece would be this lanyard loop, and I think the only way you can really get that out is you have to, if I remember correctly, you actually have to take that grip off, and then there's this pin right here. You actually have to drive that pin. I need to zoom out so it'll focus in. That pin right there, you have to drift it out, and then you need to get a hold of something and unscrew this. Don't grab that to unscrew it, because you will just twist that off. Because as you can see, that's the screw, that's the whole loop that's in there, but you need to drift that pin out, and I'm never going to mess with that. I don't see a need. So to reassemble, take your abutment piece, make sure that flat side that supports the round, put it on its post, kick it forward. I really should remember the name of that piece, but I cannot remember. And these will all come out again when I do a trigger job video. basically what you need to do is all these parts move together in unison, so there's going to be a lot of polishing of where this metal on metal is, and that will be most of the trigger job video. Whoop, I'm putting it upside down. What am I doing here? There we go. Okay, and then we need to put in the trigger. So you can see, oop, this needs to, right here. Okay, I gotta get this in camera. Okay, right here, there is a cutout. There's a cutout right here. You can see that. When you put the trigger back in, this arm of the trigger rides in there. So that's one of those pieces that will need to be polished. See how it rides? Oh, I got bad lighting. See how that rides in there now? Okay, so now I'm going to try and zoom back in here. Putting the trigger on, you just need to make sure that this piece right here, part of the trigger, fits in this little groove of the hammer. And you'll see what I mean. You put the hammer over its pin, line up your trigger, and you see how this piece is in the two little claws of the hammer, and everything's back together. Whoop. There you go. Now, this is the hardest part, and I'm no good at it. You have to get this leaf spring system back in to the to its proper place. So you really need to compress it, moving it forward, and then hooking back into that pin. So it helps if, for me, it helps if I get it started in the trigger location, knowing that this needs to go under the hammer. Really squeeze it, and then slide it up. And I failed. Squeeze it again. Okay. Squeeze it and slide it forward until it sits down in that pin. And it's hard to do on camera, but let me back that up so it can focus. But as you can see, it needs to fit underneath this part of the hammer, and it goes in that groove behind the trigger. So you just need to squeeze them down, squeeze this, compress it down, and it helps if you slide it forward, and then as you slide forward, that pin catches in the back side of the grip. Now you've got that part done, you need to put your trigger guard back on. Just simply put it over its post and rotate it forward, and then tighten that screw down. Just make sure you hold that in place, because the screw does need to fit down into that groove. Oop, drop the screwdriver, and then just tighten it down. Again, being careful not to strip any screws and damaging the firearm. Then just take your cover plate, side plate, push it back on there, turn it over, put that screw back in, tighten it down. Not too tight, but you want it to be snug. I'm going to go back to a smaller bit, because we need to put the loading gate back on, arm back on. So you can see it's really simple. Feed the screw back through. Wait. Helps if you put the loading arm back on the right way. I had it backwards. Make sure that when you put it back on, that is pointing towards the barrel, or towards the muzzle. And then tighten that down. And this is brand new. I still haven't fired it yet, in case I post this video out of order, but that's why it's still kind of greasy and dirty. Okay, got that back on. It's secured. Now you just need to put the leaf spring. See how, I don't know if they'll all be like this, but most of the time they are. There's a little cutout, just very slight, and it's probably not going to show up. There you go. There is a very slight cutout in the back of the leaf spring that helps you know that it's the bottom side, and it curves, slightly curves up, if you can see that. Stick that underneath there, put the screw back in, tighten it down, snug but not too tight. And now you have tension on your loading gate again. Okay, cylinder. Put the cylinder sleeve back in, line up those 2 points, compress it, give it a little bit of a spin. Okay, plunger arm, you need to stick that back in and then line that groove up so that when you put this spring back in, that little nub can fit down in that groove. That's what holds your rod in. And this little screw has always given me problems because it's little and I got fat fingers, and I've already dropped it once. Kind of hold it in there, drop it again. I may or may not edit all this out depending on how many attempts it's going to take me to get that thing started. Okay. It really does go there, I promise. There we go, should have done that the first time. Okay, tighten that back down. Again, snug but not too tight. Okay, the rod is retained, can't come out. Pull it out, rotate it over just enough to where you can get your barrel pin or your cylinder pins back in. So loading gate needs to be down. Okay, there you go. Fully functioning, reassembled M1895 Nagant Revolver, chambered in 7.62 by 38R. And the R stands for rimmed, not Russian, for those of you that don't know. Alright, thanks for watching.